or good afternoon, depending on where you're joining from. My name is Judith. Down here, I have my full name here. So I'm coming on here to talk about something that I'm really passionate about. I used to be a BA and I still business analyst. When I say BA, I used to be a BA and I still do that line of work every now and then in my current role. But what I will be talking on today would be how to successfully transition your career or your current role to business analysis. So I know we're not a big crowd. So I'm just wondering, can the people on the call, are you able to join through audio? Because we're not a big crowd, so maybe we could make it a collaborative one and we just talk to each other. Are you able to say hi or unmute your mic?
Hi, Judith. So I can unmute the attendees. Yeah, I can just allow them to talk.
Yeah. Just feel free. Yeah.
So Amal and Estella, you should be able to speak now.
Thank you, Linda.
You're welcome.
Hi, Estelle.
Hi, Judith.
Hi. Okay, we're a small crowd, so it's we might be a little more interactive. It would be more difficult if it's a very big crowd, but since we're a small crowd, we can hop in every now and then and exchange a few words. Is Amal able to talk? Okay, but I'll continue in the meantime. Well, just a little question for you, Estelle. Where are you currently in your career? Are you a new business analyst, or are you still aspiring to be one, or are you in the professional workforce already?
Okay, thank you. So I'm currently in the professional workforce. I'm a coordinator for the American Corner Abuja. And then aside that, I also am an entrepreneur, an upcoming one. Yes, that's it.
That's awesome. So what struck your, what are you hoping to get out of this training? Or I would just say, why did you join? What are you hoping that this training would be able to do for you?
Okay, so I'm hoping that I would gain a lot of knowledge. I know that experience sometimes is not always the best teacher, so I'm here to gain more knowledge about what I can learn from what you already have, so that I can upscale and
Okay.
basically, yeah.
Sounds good. I don't know if Amal can speak at this point. Okay, someone else saying she's into finance. Okay, so it's important for me to understand the audience, because business analysis can easily go from here to here. It's such a broad topic. People think it's quite small, but within the same space, there's just so much going on. So it's great. Thank you for sharing, Estelle. And also, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but pardon me, please. Is it Yao? Hopefully I got that right. So what I'm here to do, and I'm just going to move on to the introductory slide here. Second here. Yeah. So my objective, as I mentioned earlier, I'm extremely passionate about business analysis, because this is a journey that I created for myself, and I walked my path and got to where I am, which I'm going to share a little bit more. But my mission here is just to help provide a structured guide for individuals looking to transition from their current role to a business analyst role. And when I say, every now and then you're going to hear me say BA. When I say BA, I'm ultimately referring to business analysts. So the field is for someone who is pretty new, looking to join, or someone that is even unemployed, or sometimes I've had scenarios where people are currently in the professional space, but they're looking for something else. So my goal through this session would be to provide is kind of a structured guide, top 5 things that you'd have to look at to even determine, is this part the really, is this really the path I want to take? Throughout the course of this session, I will be looking at, there's going to be an introduction part. I'm going to be sharing a little bit of my story. Maybe 1 or 2 people on this call will be able to relate to my journey and go with me, because I find that the most impact that I have had in my life are people's stories, right? Figuring out that people did this, and to some extent it inspired me to also continue and pull from the deepest part of me to gain the strength to continue my journey. So I'll be sharing my story. And then we're then going to navigate to the main juice for this session, which is the approach, my 5-step approach, which I've used. I've also mentored quite a bit of people in Canada and outside of Canada. I have a couple of mentees that have worked closely with me, followed through my journey to also get to that business analyst dream that they've been hoping for. And then once we're done with the approach, we're gonna recap on what we've talked on, and then I would be able to take questions as well. But just on a side note, since we're quite a small crowd, I think if you do have questions, feel free to pop it in the chat, and Linda is just gonna let me know when to take a pause and take some questions. Okay. So before I jump into my stories, there are a couple of myths that you would hear out there about business analysis, and I've heard quite a bit. And even at the time when I wanted to transition my career, these myths really put me back for so many months and up to a year before I then decided to go research my truths and then figure out the path. And a couple of myths that you would hear is, you have to have an engineering degree to be able to transition to business analysis. Some other myths you would hear out there is that you do need a programming skill to be able to be successful in this business analyst field. I've also heard that even in recent time, currently, like even 2 weeks ago, I was talking to someone in the UK, and that person was very vocal about how hard it is to get a BA job today, just because it's too late now. A lot of people are in the field and is overly saturated. I've heard that as well. Another myth you might hear is that you have to have a BA certification for you to become a business analyst. And this myth, I think, hold back, and where I see this come into play most times are for people who are new or maybe unemployed or fresh out of school. Maybe they didn't do business analyst degree, or they don't have some kind of computer or engineering degree. There's always this first full force to go into a BA certification, and there's this myth that you must have a BA certification. Without that, you can't get a job. And then the 5th one on my list, which is so popular, is that the BA analyst can only operate in terms of IT projects. So there is no other space for you. The only space that you can work on is just strictly software, technology, or what you might call IT projects. So, but I'm here to tell you that all of this are just myths. They're not real. Do not buy into them. I'll start with the first one. Engineering degree, you don't have to have an engineering degree. I have worked closely with all sorts of people from different sectors and arm of workforce. A lot of them who have transitioned successfully to business analysis do not have an engineering degree. Programming skills, that again, business analysis is something I've been doing for 6 to 7 years now, and I'm still continuing to do that and currently work on a couple of projects as a lead BA. And I can tell you this, there are different types of business analysts that you can become. Yes, for someone like me, I do have a very strong technical background, so it's only natural for me that I can look at codes, do like big data queries and look into data model and data architecture. And that's because I have a technical background. I have a degree in mathematics and computer science, and also have a related master's as well. However, I have also successfully helped people who came from finance background, who transitioned from customer service, from sales, from nothing related to engineering or IT or tech even. I've even also worked with people who has never really embraced technology. The only technology they know is their cell phone and their laptop. So that just like takes you back to show you that the business analyst world is really quite broad and there is a lot of space for different people to play. And I'm going to talk a little bit more and kind of narrow it down for you. So with BA certification, I always say to people when I mentor people, the easiest way to start getting disappointed and running away from this path is jumping straight into BA certification. You want to make sure first that you understand what this career path is about. Maybe it's not for you, maybe it's for you, but you need to figure out what is this business analysis, how does it work? And I think for lack of better term, I think the easiest way to look at this business analysis is really to ask the question, what does a BA do on a day-to-day basis? And I find that most people who came back to me after struggling, for a couple of months or even maybe years, trying to figure out how to transition, the biggest red flag I always see is that they jump straight into BA certification. They go for CBAB and CBAB, and I'll tell you this, CBAB is a worldwide known, BA certification put together by the IIBA body, and I'll drop some links and you can research that later on. The way that certification is written is that a lot of the content you must have been in the BA space for you to really comprehend it. Because if you pick it up first with no knowledge of business analysis, I can tell you this, the struggle is going to be real. So it's actually a myth. And I can say this to you, so many people I know, even myself, I got a BA job without a BA certification. My BA certification, I started racking that up after I got to my junior level job, and then I'm trying to build up to move into the intermediate and senior level. I then started focusing on getting a certification. And I'll talk a little bit more as well. And the last one I'll throw on here is, BA business analysts, they only operate in the terms of IT projects. This is also a myth. The reason I say this is because, as I mentioned earlier, you can be on the tech side, but also business analysis is something that is applied across board. You can work on both IT, human-centered projects. And when I say human-centered projects, I mean projects that is, let me give you a practical example, is you have a shopping store who is trying to figure out how to manage traffic during Christmas shopping season. Linda, can you mute? I think someone is not a mute.
I love to have skills, like I have
Okay, let's carry on.
Yeah.
Okay, so the last one as I mentioned, is the idea that you can only be a business analyst and work in IT projects. So because it's just IT project, there's not a lot of options out there for you. Again, I'm going to talk a little bit more about this and show you or express to you other options that you could have. Okay, so here, something I always hear from people, especially when they reach out to me on LinkedIn, part of the questions they would always throw out is, should I consider business analysis? And most times this question always comes from the new professionals or the seasoned individuals. So when I say seasoned individuals, you could hear me say seasoned individuals or tenured professionals. What I mean by that is someone who's already been in the corporate field for at least 5 years and upwards. So majority of the time when I get people on LinkedIn or I interact or network with people looking to transition into the BA world, I always get these questions from the tenured or the seasoned individuals. Should I consider business analysis because I've done this. This is where I am. Do you think that I'm able to transition what I have now into this field, or is this a total waste of time? And I'll say this, anyone who is willing to develop the necessary skills to execute the BA job can become a business analyst. I've done it myself. I've helped people who has no background whatsoever in tech to be able to transition. But I'll say this, and this is why I have this up on the screen. Anyone who is willing, it has to come from you. It doesn't come from writing 20 certifications. It doesn't, come from joining 20 training groups. It has to come from you. So you have to be willing to develop the necessary skills. And then once you make that decision to go that route, you're going to commit, because it's not easy. I've gone through that journey myself, and I'll tell you this, it's not easy. It takes time, it takes commitment, and it also goes back to where you are at this point in your life. It's possible that you have a job, you have a family and a household to run, or you might even have a business. So there's a lot of factors that will play in, but at the end of the day, your transition depends on you and your willingness to develop the necessary skills that is required. So here, what I have on my screen here, I have the aspiring professionals, we have new professionals, seasoned individuals, consultants. There's no restrictions on you or whether or not you can go this route. But I think the most important thing, and this is why I'm on this training, and this is what I want us to look at this morning, is to be able to get a 360 view of what would it take for you to make that decision, and even figure out if business analysis is the path that you would like to take. Okay, moving on. Why do you need to explore the business analysis option? I think if you do your research, I'm someone who I'm very factual. I like facts. So I do a lot of research. I don't necessarily in every part of my life, and even in my personal life. So let's exclude career at this point. I like to do research. I like to make sure that when I'm making decisions in my life, I'm using facts. So it's important that if you're coming from a culture that doesn't quite support research, there are some cultures, and I say this because I've lived in different parts of the world and I've experienced different cultures. Some cultures are stronger in research and some cultures are not big on research. But I'm going to say this on this call this morning. I do encourage you to dig deep, do research, make sure you're making your decision based on facts, right? And some of the facts I'm going to throw out there for you is the first one on the bullet points. The level in the US, they have a board, the Bureau of Labor Statistics called the BLS. They run all the statistics every year to come up. They look into their labor force and then generate real data in terms of professions to be able to show the citizens what professions are trending, where you can see growth or where you might want to fix yourself. So according to this recent publication from BLS, business and analysts are on track for growth up to 25% by 2030. So this works against the myth that you saw on my last slide that says there is no job because BA world is already saturated. There is a lot of data, and as you begin to explore and research, and some of the keywords that you could research in Google could be, statistics of our business analyst career in Nigeria, in Africa, depending on where you are. There are just lots of play around the browser and just read publications and make sure that you're verifying that the sources are credible sources. For example, Bureau of Labor Statistics, is something that is grounded in the US, and this is something that they published on their site. The second one, I live in Canada, and this is, again, we have the Job Bank, gc.ca. So Job Bank, and if you're on this call and maybe you've tried to apply to Canada, you know that we have the Federal Work Skill Program. And part of that work skill would be they do list out the kind of professions that they are looking for. And this publication came from a source called the Job Bank that worked closely with that arm of Immigration of Canada. So the job bank gc.ca also put this up. They actually published this last year, I think in 2021, but they did modify it in August 2022, which is only 2 months ago. And in that publication, they also showed that business analysis role is a booming career across multiple provinces in Canada. And when you click on this link and navigate to this link, it would show you at least about 5 to 6 provinces where business analysis is really booming. Again, I've also seen some articles that I've read coming from Africa, identifying that business analysis career continues to gain popularity. And most especially since after the 2 years of the COVID pandemic, with most companies now transitioning remote, we have companies going and digitizing different areas of their business. You continue to see that business analysis is gaining in serious popularity over the world. So if you're coming in with the mindset of it might be too late now, I'm waiting for the new thing, I'm telling you it's not too late. Success in life is just about preparation and also having a focus on where you want to go. Okay. But I will pause a little bit. Do we have any questions before I continue? Linda, do you want to see if anyone has a question before I jump to the next component of this training?
Okay, checking now. Let me check the Q&A window. There's none here. I don't see any in the chat. Does anyone want to ask Judith directly by unmuting himself or herself? You can also just raise your hand and I'll unmute you. Okay, it looks like no one has a question at this point, so you can carry on, Judith.
Okay, sounds good. So here, I'll tell a little bit of my story, maybe something that you can relate to. Maybe there might be key takeaways for you. But I would like, I'm a storyteller. I like to tell stories and carry my journey through stories. So just hang in here for a few minutes. So my story really is, and what brought me here and why I'm actively doing this is because I started my journey by myself, failed a lot of times, put in a lot of tears, but eventually I came out at the winning end. So for my career background, I did a tech-related course, graduated in Nigeria. I'm Nigerian, by the way. I started my career in tech, in IT. So, but then the core of what I did in Nigeria was hardware support. So we would work on servers, your desktop, your PCs, network in the office. It was all hardware. And I had gained a couple of years of experience and I enjoyed it and really wanted to grow in that path. So obviously, when I was thinking of doing my master's, I was like, okay, I'm gonna try to see if I can get a scholarship or go to school abroad and then transition from there. So I eventually saw myself, worked through the process, got schools, and then ended up in Canada to do my master's. And when I had graduated, I then started looking for jobs. And that's when it hit me. All of the years that I have acquired in Nigeria as a hardware support individual doesn't translate to anything in Canada. I kept trying to apply for jobs, but I couldn't. It was just so limited options to get a hardware support. And that's when it struck me. And I remember going into an interview. I had pretty much applied for something I shouldn't be applying for. I got into the interview and I was overwhelmed. I have no experience with what they were asking whatsoever. But I think for me, I remember dressing up that morning and I'm like, okay, I'm going to go into this interview. I know that I may not get this job, but I need to ask them questions in terms of the tech space in Canada. So I went into that conversation and then I pretty much geared the conversation away from interviewing me because I made it clear to the lady, I'm like, I'm really not here for this job because I actually, now thinking about it, I don't think I'm qualified to do this job, but these are my questions. I'm a new immigrant and I do have questions. And then I started asking, like, these are my experiences in Nigeria. Why am I finding it so hard to apply for jobs or transition in Canada? And that's when I left that conversation with a lot of takeaway. It opened my eyes that Canada has a culture of software. They were more focused on software than hardware. And it's simple. The reason was because in Canada, if you bought, like if you bought a cell phone, like my cell phone, you have a warranty. They even have extra warranty you can buy on this phone. The system works a little differently. Same thing as laptops and PCs. Buy a HP laptop, you've got warranty on there. So their culture of hardware maintenance is minimal compared to back in Africa, where, you know, we do have shopping complexes where secondhand hardwares are being sold. So for them, they have a warranty system, a refurbishing system, you know, people automatically takes a new thing, trade, you know, once it gets 2 years old, they can trade it in and get the latest thing. So it made that market really, really small. And that's why I was struggling. So crossing over to North America, they are so big in software. They, you know, like in Nigeria, I remember in the companies I had worked in Nigeria, and I worked in banks, I worked in an insurance company, and I also worked for a mobile BlackBerry, a mobile company. So going back to Nigeria, software is something that we always buy off the shelf. There weren't, at the time when I lived in Nigeria, this was about 10, 11 years ago, at the time when I was in that working space, most companies are buying something you call COTS, which is like custom or off-the-shelf softwares. But in Canada, most of these companies are building the softwares themselves. So that's where the gap was. And this brings me to the second bullet point here, which I say breaking into the tech space as a new immigrant. Once I got this information, and I'll tell you this information did not come in 1 month. It took a lot of disappointment for me to just kind of start climbing and talking to the right people and trying to figure out where and how I need to navigate in this new society. So when I figured out, like, okay, hardware is still there, but it's quite small. If you need a bigger space to play, you need to be thinking of how you're going to put yourself in this side. And then I started right away, I jumped into programming. You know, I did a little bit of programming back in uni, but then now I'm looking at Canada, okay, what are the top languages I need to learn? C+ is there, Python is there, they're all coming at me with different things. And I got in there all over the place, got overwhelmed, and then fell back into so much disappointment and failure. So throughout this journey, I'm getting in there, I'm doing the programming, I jumped from there to web design. I'm just all over the place, time is going. I'm not passionate about any of these things that I was doing, and I was drowning. It was painful, you know, going through failure and disappointment over and over again. And then eventually, you know, like, I started talking more to people. I started researching. Every day I'm online, I'm researching things like, how do I transition to be a business analyst? I didn't even know business analysis at the point. I would research, how do I transition to tech jobs? And eventually, through my research, one day, this BA thing came up on my screen. No one told me about it. I just randomly saw this thing online, and it popped up in one of my researches, and I started reading. I'm like, wait a minute. This sounds interesting. This seems like I could be a little bit technical, but not abstract, because programming was so abstract for me. And I didn't enjoy it. I could do it, but it wasn't bringing me fulfillment and joy. It was rather frustrating me. I'm working against my personality, because my personality, I'm very extroverted, interactive. I like to solve like problem, interact with people and try to see where their head is at and try to come up with solutions. So the programming thing was just too rigid and so rudimentary for my personality, and I was struggling. So then I discovered the BA role, started doing a little bit more research, still didn't make sense to me. And like some of you that's on this call, the first thing I did was to jump into writing a certification, because that's what someone told me would work. So I go in here I am registering, paid my money, but all these materials and resources I should be studying, and I'm reading this and I have no clue, even though I've been in tech for so long, I have no clue what this business analysis is all about. The terminologies, the concepts still didn't make sense. And then I retracted and I gave up. And eventually I'm like, okay, maybe I should go into project management. And then I started pursuing PMP. And the more you talk to people, the more I couldn't find people in this field. You know, it was hard for me to make a decision whether BA should also be my path. So I'm like, okay, what's the next best thing? I'm going to go to PMP because some of my friends are already writing their PMP, which is project management professional exam. So maybe that's the next route. And I was just like all over the place. It took a lot of time, a lot of disappointments, a lot of being lost without knowing where I'm going to figure out eventually how to navigate my life. And that's where my transition process started. And I'm going to talk a little bit more. And this is why for some of us, you know, being a Nigerian, I come from a culture that tells you to hold in your next move. Don't say to people because someone is going to sabotage your journey. And I did it alone for so many years. I never talked to people. You know, I just tried to navigate things myself until I met a Canadian who opened my eyes, and the conversation was the opposite. And that lady, I remember standing on that road with that lady, just being frustrated and crying and exhausted. And she said something to me. She's like, I think you need to start talking to people. You need to start showing up to random conferences, professional conferences. You need to start networking. You need to start telling your friends, this is what you want to do in your next move, because you never know who's going to point you in the right direction. And that's what changed my life. Someone, random person I met at the gym, randomly talking about my next step while working out, helped transition my life. That girl had been approached by somebody else who was a BA mentor, trying to tell her like, okay, you haven't found a job in mechanical engineering. I think you should try to transition to a business analyst role. But she's gone through all this journey trying to be an engineer in Canada. And she said, no, I'm determined to be a mechanical engineer in this country and I will not do something else. And I randomly met this girl at the gym working out and we started talking. And then I told her what I was doing. And at the time I was in sales, selling cell phone for this company. And then I told her like, you know, this is my degree. I'm really frustrated. This is where I want to go, but I've been trying, but it's not happening. And through that conversation, she pointed, she's like, I have this mentor who has been trying to mentor me. I'm not interested, but I can recommend you, I can introduce you, and maybe it's something that you would like to do. And that one connection transitioned my life. Yeah, of course, from my transition process to the results, yeah, it took about 6 months to 7 months, but the stepping stone, what I always lacked is the structure, the guideline of what am I exactly supposed to do to get me to this finish line. I didn't have that, but that girl was able to take me to someone who has done it for himself. And that's why I'm not a strong believer of writing certifications up and down, especially when you're trying to transition into a new role that is unknown to you. It was easier for me to quit the certification I already paid for. And I joined this man on his journey because when he spoke to me, he pretty much walked his walk by himself. He wasn't teaching something that was off IIBA certification. He was teaching his journey and his story. He has done this by coming from a non-technology background. He had a degree in administration, business administration. He went from that role, transitioned himself into a BA world, and not only that, then took a step further to transition himself into a BSA, which is the Business Systems Analyst. Now, BA can be very functional, non-technical, but then when you jump over to the BSA, that's now when it's embedded with so much technology. But these two people made an impact in my life, and I can't share my story without talking about these two people, because without them, it was wallowing. I already gave up on the path. I gave up on business analysis. I was going to pursue something else, and eventually found my way back to it through connecting with people. And that's why I'm mentioning this, because connection, communicating, networking is so important. We underestimate the power of networking and the power of connection and communicating. we have some cultures that promote internalizing all the time, but majority of the time, looking out from, now that I have experienced two cultures and looking out from the outside, sometimes that internalizing everything and all our steps sometimes holds us back. It keeps us away from information. It keeps us away from meeting the right people. So as we go through this training, I want you to keep an open mind. I want you to also take yourself through a journey of self-reflection, because if you do really desire to be a business analyst, a lot of the work would come from you and how you position yourself. And eventually, coming up to my last point here, as I mentioned, my transition took about 6 to 7 months for me, and I could have transitioned in 3 to 4 months, but I took a little bit of time because I wanted to be grounded in what I was doing. I wanted to be solid when I got that job and I moved into that path, that I'm confident enough to an extent to be able to speak to the job. So I waited, did a lot of work personally, and this is exactly what I put into the approach of this transition, is really putting it out there and sharing with you the journey, how I condensed all my journey into 5 simple steps that I took to even help me identify if this role is actually for me, and then figure out how I was going to transition into that role. Okay, so I'm going to take a moment here to take a look at a couple of things here. Okay. Okay, so Linda, you're telling them how to connect. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next thing. I put up this quote here because this quote really means so much. This is a quote by Scott Peck that I had found at the time when I was transitioning. And I'll tell you this, in my bedroom, I had a very big whiteboard that I had 10 quotes on there, and some of those quotes you're going to see on this slide. These are quotes that I looked at every day throughout my transition process. I would chant them to myself. I would read it out loud just to give me a little bit of boost. But this is one of them, and the quote goes, "The only way to do great work is to love what you do. If you haven't found it yet, keep looking, don't settle." And when I was preparing this presentation, I popped on this slide and tears rolled down my eyes, because I do love what I do. I know I've talked to Linda and I talked to one of the organizers yesterday. I'm like, if I wasn't doing what I'm doing, I don't know what else I'll be doing, because I do. I came to even say that. I remember where I was 10 years ago, not knowing where I was going, thinking of moving back to Nigeria, really depressed, going through all sorts of emotions and feeling like you're never going to find that thing that really makes you happy. Don't get me wrong, my job is tough. It takes a lot of work, but in all of it, I have so much joy and so much love for what I do. So it's important. And if you're here and your next step is to transition, I'm here to help. I'm happy that you're here. I'm happy that I'm going to help to share, because I think the biggest mistake you would make is to waste all this time, pour your resources, energy, and time to try to transition into something, and you get there and it's not something you love. A lot of people that I have mentored over the years have gone through this route where they gave up what they had because they didn't love it. And BA is supposed to be that thing they love, and they get in there and they find that this is absolutely not for me. And that's why when I teach, I never teach with certification first. There are other most important things that is always overlooked. And when you do your research, how to transition to a BA, majority of the time, the results you're going to see in Google search would be, you see all these links for BA certification. I never lead with that, because first of all, you need to make sure that this role is actually for you. Only when you're sure that, okay, you personally have the skills that it takes to be able to climb there, you're going to go through that journey and be successful. Because I'll tell you this, the journey is not an easy one. It takes a lot of reading, studying. There's a lot that goes into it. So if it's not for you, you're going to go through a lot of pressure and a lot of disappointment to get there. Okay. So here, now this is the core of the gist, and this is why you're here, the approach. As I mentioned earlier, this approach is curated based on my personal journey and also the journey of the people that I've mentored over the years who have successfully also transitioned their career. So here, what you're going to be seeing in this approach is a structured 5-step guideline that would help you transition to a business analyst role when, if you decide that this is where you want to go. Again, the approach here allows you to go on a 360 journey. So you're going to look really deep and do a lot of self-reflection and do some exercises, even on paper, to help you determine. And I think the biggest thing with transitioning is figuring out first, is this job a good fit for me? Am I a good fit for this job? Do I think I have at least the bare minimum, the soft skills to be able to be successful in this role? So here we're going to go on a 360 journey to help you uncover your why, what, and how to make your transition a successful one. And also just something I encourage you to do is keep an open mind throughout this exercise and really be brutally honest, because and I'm going to talk on the next slide why you need to be brutally honest when doing this exercise, because if you are not open-minded or if you are not honest to yourself, you're going to make some decisions and decide to continue on a path that may not be for you. So here these are the 5 steps to help you transitioning. So the first one here I have and a synopsis of what I have here is to analyze. You have to learn, inspect, focus, and engage. So when you come into, and I'm going to go through each of this module to explain to you what I mean by those and what are the exercises or the activities that you should be doing within each component. So in the analyze, this is where you're sitting back, and this has nothing to do with certification. It has nothing to do with your degree or your, where you are at the time. This is just a personal reflection where I'm a writer, like I like to write. So this is an exercise. When I did this exercise by myself, I had like a big brown board, and I remember standing there. I set a timer for 30 minutes to help me script out exactly why I really want this change so bad. So the first one there is for you to analyze, why do you need a career change? Because when you do this first step, I'll tell you the last 4 is a journey. It's challenging. It's not easy. It's going to push you to your limits. For you to do the last 4, you're going to see yourself trying to step out of your comfort zone. And an example is I stepped out of my comfort zone when I applied for a job. I went for an interview, asked me, tell me about yourself. That was great. I pretty much talked about myself in 2 minutes. Like I've done multiple interviews at this stage, so I had a script. I knew what to say. But it got challenging when they started asking me other questions that related to the job. But that's where, because I knew my why, and I walked into that room saying, I can't leave this interview if I don't have answers to be able to navigate my why. So analyzing why you need a career change is something that when I mentor people, it's always the first question I ask them. And you'll be surprised, the majority of the time, you see people on the call, they would pause for 20 minutes or 30 minutes. They can't tell me at the snap of the finger why they want to transition. And some of them would say, and it's just like up and down and up and down and up and down. And it kind of tells me that they haven't internalized, they haven't processed really why. They're still looking on the surface and figuring out, focusing on something that they haven't really thought deep about. So it's important that you're analyzing why you need a career change. Then the second step is you need to learn about the business analysis and confirm that it's an actual career choice for you, because the effort, time, that resources that you would spend in the last 3, it just might not be worth it if you don't take your time to learn about the business analysis and really confirm that this is where you want to continue to go. Then the third step here is to inspect. Here, we're talking about inspecting your transferable skills. And what do I mean by that? As an individual, and I know a couple of persons on this call has pointed out that they are, or they already have a job, or they are somewhere working. So, and a question that comes up, or something that holds back some people that I've mentored, is when you're already in your current role, you're thinking, how do I transition? These two things are unrelated. How am I going to be able to become a BA, even though I really like this BA job and I want to try it out, but I don't know how to go from where I am today to the next step? This is what the step 3 here, which is inspect your transferable skills. I'm going to show you how to look at your current skills and map that to the skills that are required to become a BA analyst. And maybe by the time you're done with number 3, it will be very clear to you, BA job is for me, or BA job is not for me. And there's nothing wrong with that if you do. And that's why I say be brutally honest, because you could do this exercise and the outcome of this exercise is that you realize instantly, I don't think this job is for me. And which is good, because then it saves you the time, the resources, and the energy that you're going to pour into it without getting to the finish line. The 4th step here is to focus on strengthening your position. So by the time you inspect your transferable skills, something I find with myself and people that I've mentored is, throughout the exercise of inspecting your transferable skills, you're going to see some BA skills that you don't have. And then that's where you can identify those ones and then start focusing on strengthening those skills. And that's what I mean by focus on strengthening your positioning. So your positioning would be, you're trying to position yourself as a BA. You need to talk the talk, you need to walk the walk. So when you inspect yourself, figure out your transferable skills, figure out the skills that you lack, then it then allows you to focus on those skills and then start acquiring those skills. And the 4th step really is then where you have to start thinking about, okay, what do I have to do? Do I need to change up my certification? Do I need to do a lot more? So I would go through each one and explain the activities as well. And then the final step is now for you to engage. The world has changed so much. And if you look at the population growth, I'll take an example. You have a country like Nigeria with over 300 million people. There are human beings, and I'm talking about young workforce. This is not retiring workforce. Even Canada as a country, where Canada was 5 years ago is not where they are today. They have a lot of immigration program. Canada is gaining young workforce every day. So when you understand that, then you would then understand the importance of engaging. The certification, if you have all the certification in this world, you write all of them, you don't go out there to engage, it's going to be hard. It will just be a certification sitting on your desk and not doing anything for you. So engage with the BA world is the one that's quite challenging, especially for people who are a little introverted. But I'm going to show you ways that you can navigate it, whether you're extroverted or introverted. There's something here for everyone. Okay, moving on. Do we have any questions?
No questions yet.
Sounds good. Okay, I will proceed. So for step 1 here, it says analyze why you need a career change. I think, can we mute? Okay. So the first one says analyze why you need a career change. And this is one of the quotes that was on my whiteboard when I was transitioning. It says, our fear, uncertainty, and discomfort are your compasses towards growth. And that's where I was. I was scared that I wasn't going to make it. It was uncertain where I was going to go next. I was uncomfortable. And when I mean uncomfortable, I was uncomfortable financially. I was living paycheck to paycheck. And the longer I stayed on that job, I realized that I would not be able to financially get to where I was if I continued to be there. So this quote is really one of the quotes that I read out loud to myself every morning. Okay, so when you're analyzing, the first step is, like I mentioned, if you go back, you want to analyze why you want to change. What you don't want to do is transition your career solely because business analysis is a trending career role at the moment. You don't want to join the crowd before doing your research. So what I mean by joining the crowd is, oh yeah, my friend just got a BA job. I honestly, number two, I'm guilty as charged. I had a friend who got a BA job. And then I remember she told me, I got so excited for her and I came back and I'm like, oh my God, I need to start applying because if this girl can just apply and get a job, I can do that too. But hey, I tried for 3 months. No one was calling me back. And of course, self-doubt kicked in, anger, frustration, y'all. I went through all those emotions. Yeah, I went through them, I lived them, and I came out of them. Number three, you don't want to jump straight into writing BA certification before verifying if the role is a good fit for you. This is super important. Number four, you might want to check accepting job interviews before you gain just enough knowledge about the BA role. The problem with this, and this happened to me, and it's also happened to a lot of people that I mentored that truthfully poured out their hearts. When you start applying for jobs and you start getting no, there's something it does to your confidence. It pours in self-doubt. So by the time you get that no back to back, 1, 2, 3 times, the other ones, when you go in, you're already going with this fear or this pre-perceived notion that no one is going to hire you. And that overall it will just automatically mask your energy, mask your confidence level. And even though you might have the correct answers to the questions you're being asked, there is just this thing that comes from self-doubt that covers it all. So here, I always say for number 4, you might want to step back from applying for jobs and going for interviews until you gain just enough knowledge to be confident about the BA role, to be confident in what you want. Because the thing is, the first interview might be a no, second interview might be a no, but if at the deepest part of your guts, you know that I want to be a BA, this is the job I'm pursuing, this job is for me, then automatically you're able to change your mindset to, I know that I've gotten no's, but all it takes is going to be one yes. Someone is going to say yes to me. And when that person says yes to me, it's going to open the doors and allow me to do what I really want to do. So that's why I always make the first step about analyzing your why. And then based on that why, you can then move on to the next step. So number 4, if you're currently on this call and you've tried interviewing and you've gotten no's, don't worry, there are other, as we go through the course of these sessions, you're also going to gain 2 things or 3 things that might help you manage where you are. And then number 4, what you don't want to do while doing the exercise of analyzing your why is holding back and not exploring the option because of fear. You don't want to hold back. And what I mean by that is when you're going through this exercise, if the reason why you want to leave your current job is because your boss is stressing you out, you want to go deep and ask yourself the question, why? It's possible that you might not be a good worker, or you're not qualified for that particular job, or you don't have this personality or the soft skills to do that job. You want to be brutally honest to yourself. Don't cloud it and come up with, I am trying to leave this job because it's a toxic environment. You want to look inwards first before you externalize. And when you do this exercise and you're open and truthful to yourself, it would allow you to see the skills that are truly your best soft skills. And you would need to know your best soft skills before you even try to transition to a BA. Because if you don't tackle that, what's going to happen is you transition to a BA, the same problem is going to follow you from your current place to the second place. And you will never find that fulfillment. So it's super important that you don't hold back, you explore your option and don't let fear hold you back. So in this picture you have here, this is a vicious cycle that you might go through if you go this other way of doing things. If you don't go through the part of analyzing and deeply asking yourself, why do I want to change? If you quickly jump steps and just rush into applying for jobs, getting a BA certification, or not telling yourself the truth why you want to quit your old job, you're going to get into this vicious cycle that builds up with self-doubt, failure syndrome, dissatisfaction. Even when you get to the next thing, you're still not going to be happy. So it's important that we go through the steps first. We avoid the steps to allow us to get to this step. So here, what do you want to do in this first step? You want to dig deep to figure out why you desire change. You want to take note of your why, because that will be your motivator if you decide to proceed. So I'll give you an example here. In my case, when I did this exercise, what was my why? I thought my why was about money, because that was the first thing I put on there. I want to be able to earn more. That's what I thought it was. But the more I did this exercise and the more I wrote down a line, and I still have the book I used throughout this exercise is still here. And the more I did this exercise, it started opening my eyes that my motivator I thought was money, but it wasn't. Money was later on. By the time I finished this exercise, money was my third option. My first motivator was I needed a change because I wanted where my work would be appreciated. And I also wanted to be in an environment where I'm allowed to share. So I used to always have stomach ulcers, going to hospital on my previous job. And then I started figuring out this where anxiety, you're dealing with racial, subtle, very subtle racial discrimination, where people always think that your ideas are secondary because maybe your education is not from a Canadian school. So obviously you're not quite as bright. I always found that when I came up with something, they never projected, but they would project it if the same thing came from somebody else. So these exercises, allowed me to go deep. So even before the financial, it was more about mental and emotional motivator. That's what I figured out was my motivator. And throughout my journey, and I will tell you this, when I wrote down those motivators, what it did for me, ever since I transitioned, I have not found myself in an environment that wasn't good for me. I've been successful at every company I've worked for ever since I transitioned. One thing is consistent. I will tell you, I love their culture. I'm happy here, but I'm only transitioning because I'm trying to go up to the next thing. So your motivator is, and I've had people who their motivator is solely, I want to get paid more. And what that does to you is when it's very clear to you what your motivator is when it gets tough, you always go back to your motivator and like, if I don't make this change, I won't be able to get here. So I need to make this change. So I'm going to follow through. I'm going to persist to follow through because what I'm putting into myself and the energy I'm pouring out today is what's going to help me get to my next point. And for some reason, if you're exercising, and based on my experience with mentoring people, when the motivators are not quite clear, because I've had instances where you ask the people, why do you want to change? They're like, I want to change because I want the next thing. I'm like, what do you mean by the next thing? That's my job as a BA. My job as a BA, you have to be a problem solver. You always ask questions. I'm like, okay, so what do you mean when you say you want the next thing? And that's where you get the very long pause. And there's a very long silence because they're trying to figure out what that means to them. And then what happens when they start transitioning, and I had a case when I started mentoring people earlier on, there was this guy and that was his answer to me. He's like, oh, I want the next thing. I like feeling challenged. I want to jump into the next thing because this is just unknown. It was just so vague. And what happened was I went on that journey. I started mentoring him. And I'll tell you this, the biggest nightmare of a mentor is to waste your time, energy, and resources on someone who is not committed to the process. Because there could be somebody else out there who you're helping transform their life. And then you chose this person, and this person is not even clear on why they even want that change in the first place. So for every single time it got tough, because his why wasn't very clear, it was so easy for him to go, I think I'm not that desperate. I think I can go back to my job. At least I still have a job. And then 1 week later, he's calling me again. Oh, something happened. Like, I really want this change. I want to get back on. I'm sorry. Like, it just wasn't clear. But then when I started, the longer I did this with people and mentor people, I then grew that skill to always help people identify what their motivators is. And the biggest change with the people I've worked with is that when it gets tough, all I have to do is just remind them their motivator. Remember, you wrote this word. You want this change because you want to be able to do this. You want this change because your passions have changed now. Your passion is no longer about, punching in people's money. You're now passionate about figuring out how you can make real life impact in changing the way people do work in an organization. Where you want to go with your life now is you want to move away. You've looked, and based on the research we've done, for you to continue to be in this role, the highest salary you would ever make, even after 10 years of experience, is within this range. But if you jump over to this side, you have an opportunity to make more and even change your roles, go from BA to product manager to something else. So I always have their motivator at the front of their heart, and they also know what their motivator is. So when it gets tough, they're able to quickly go back, draw strength from that motivator and continue their journey. The third thing here is to be brutally honest about your reason. And I've talked about this in my previous slide, and I will not underestimate it. Be honest. If you're not a good communicator, tell yourself you're not. If you're not someone that can multitask, tell yourself the truth. I am having issues on my current job because I can't multitask. I don't have attention to details. I get into trouble because I can't commit to what I say I'm going to do and follow through. Be honest to yourself. Write all of these things down, because there's a difference when you just mentally process things and when you put it down. I always like to put it down so you can read it to yourself. And then the more you read it and see it, the more you start processing and start asking yourself, how am I going to change this? Okay. And then here, as you go through this exercise, make sure your why is good enough for the change. If your why is, and I'll give you an example. Someone once told me, a mentee once told me Hawaii. And what was Hawaii? Hawaii is, I'm trying to change because this work is really, really tough and challenging. And I tried to dig deep. And every time I dug deep and asked her questions, that was the answer I got. It's so tough. And I told her, I can't take you on. I can't mentor you because that's a you problem. I'll tell you this. Every job on this earth is challenging, and every job have their own challenges. For some jobs, it's physical. For some job, it's mental. Some job is emotional. But to think that there is that job in this world where you're going to show up and not face any challenges is just beyond me. And I don't think that I can take on my time and work with someone whose mindset is to find a job that comes with no challenges, because I don't believe any of those jobs exist. So you want to make sure that your why is good enough for the change. And what I mean by that is, if your why is something that when you move to the next place, it could replicate, then that's not a good why. Because challenging environments is going to transfer no matter where you find yourself. Working with tough team members is not company A issue. It goes along for every company you go into. We're all different in the way we talk, the way we communicate. And because you're working as a team and working with different people, you're definitely always going to face personality issues or communication issues. So to think that you're going to leave a job to get to this new space where there will never be conflict is, it's just not attainable. So you want to make sure your why is good enough for the change. So I'm going to go back here. And then the last one is take a quiz to know your why. But I don't think that quiz, I didn't put it on there. But what I meant by here, this would be an exercise just for interest of time. This would be an exercise that you would have to do yourself. So again, how do you do this exercise? Take a pen and paper, start asking yourself, why am I looking to change my role? And I'll give you some ideas here. Based on my research and the people I've mentored, people desire a career change majorly. There are so many reasons why people desire a career change, but most of the time, people desire a career change based on these 5 things. They want growth, so better opportunity for them to professionally advance themselves. They want bigger pay, bigger salary or benefits, depending on what it is. They want flexibility, and flexibility has gained popularity, especially in North America and other parts of Europe as well, since after the pandemic. People want real work-life balance. They want to be able to remotely work. They want to work from home some days and show up in the office. So people would desire a career change when they're looking for flexibility. For health reasons, people want a career change when they're in an environment that stresses them out, maybe a toxic work culture, and who knows, maybe even physically and on their personal health. Someone can go from being very mobile to being disabled. I know people in my life that have gone from that point where they had a physical job where they're physically moving around, going to sites, inspecting lands and all. And today, for one reason or the other, things have changed in terms of health, and they're now finding themselves in a place where they're on a wheelchair or they can't stand as much anymore. So in that scenario, they're now looking to transition to a more computer-based job that they can do remotely and don't have to exert a lot of energy on their physical body. And then the last option again is just life. People want to change because life happens, and with everything else, change is consistent. They had a change in their philosophy, their passion, or their values. From someone like me who was there, I thought programming was really what I wanted to do. And the more I got into it, I recognized that it was too abstract. I prefer a tech side of life that allows me to interact with human beings and make direct impacts on human. And that's the path that I chose when I chose business analysis. But again, when you go through this exercise, I want you to remember that if the benefits of making your change, and I'll tell you this, when you start looking, especially when you're a new graduate or you're unemployed, there's nothing for you to lose. But when you already have a job and you're trying to leave that to transition to something else, then it becomes a little riskier. The fear of the unknown kicks in. But that's where I have it up there. If the benefits outweighs the risk, then changing careers can improve your happiness and quality of life. And that's why it's good that you do the exercise in step 1 and take your time to understand your why, figure out, okay, if I make this change, what are the benefits that I will be able to put to myself? And based on that, you're able to see if the benefit outweighs the risk. And if it does, by all means, feel free to transition, because at the end of it, you're going to be happier. And I think your quality of life is going to be better improved. Okay, so for the step 2 here is to learn about business analysis and confirm your career choice. Again, this is another quote when I had to learn and read and I was frustrated. I remember I used to cry and be like, God, I already did my master's. I read so much. Why do I have to continue to read again? Learning is not attained by chance. It must be sought for with ardor and attended to with diligence, because without learning, you're still going to be in that gloom. I forced myself. I had a job at the time. And it was a very physical, I'm standing all the time. I'm walking around. In winter, you're standing in malls. It was physically draining, but I always had to find space and created a structured schedule to allow me to learn, because that's the only way that I can confirm that this career choice is for me. So some of the frequently asked questions that I would get, especially with mentors or people looking to transition their career, would be, what is business analysis? What exactly does a business analyst do on a day-to-day? Where can I work as a business analyst? Is business analyst really a good fit for me? Where do I begin? Do I need to learn programming? And if you're someone in this room, I think a couple of people that are actively looking to transition, you may have asked yourself this question one or a few times, but this step is here to help you answer these questions. So what is business analysis? Business analysis, there is a predefined, IIBA. IIBA, again, is the international body put together for business analysis. So if you want it to be an internationally recognized certification for business analysts, would be the CBAB, and is developed by the IIBA body. So they do have a definition. But again, that definition is not on my screen, because it just uses a lot of complex words that an average person may not be able to relate to. It's so BA focused. But I will break it down for you. What business analysis is just the process of finding solutions to business problems. by using research, data, analytical methodologies. So you're doing all sorts of analysis, looking into business problems to then identify what exactly does the business need? What areas can we improve? And how do we improve this for this company to be able to come out successful? So when you look at this definition, it doesn't specify technology. It doesn't say programming. It encompasses all. It just says business analysis is the process of finding solutions to business problem by using specific methodologies. You have to do research. You're not finding solutions to business problem by guesswork. You're actually finding solutions to business problem by facts. You're doing research, you're looking into the company, and you're analyzing where they are, what the problem is, and based on that, you're looking for areas of improvement to help them, better improve their processes or products or services. That's really what business analysis. And when you look at this definition, it tells you that you can exist anywhere. You can work in a mine, you can work in a warehouse, you can work in a tech company, you can work for the government. It's just anywhere that allows you to look at a problem, whether it's an enterprise problem or business problem or organizational problem, whatever you want to make that word. Anywhere that allows you to look at these problems, try to figure out, okay, why is this company or why is this organization facing this problem? How do we come out of this? As you go through that process of analysis, that's really what business analysis is. And again, my second point here, business analysis can be performed in a variety of sectors and initiatives. It does not have to be technology focused. But the truth is, with the way life is going, life is transitioning into a more tech space. You're hearing about the robotic cars, you're hearing about all of this engagement, the meta data, and all of those engagement that is coming up in the future. Life is transitioning there. And as a younger generation and as a younger population, you want to be thinking a little bit more future forward, because where life is going is eventually we're going to transition to, I live in a country that 80%, 70% of operations is online. You're not going into offices and having a queue of 20 people sitting there. Even to go into hospitals now, you book appointments, they check you in online, you answer all your COVID questions, everything. Majority of what we do here is online. And that's where the rest of the world will slowly catch up. And I know that some countries are slower than others, but eventually life is generally moving through that path. And what you're going to see a lot more on the labor markets is just more business analysis career related to tech development. But again, in those scenarios, you don't have to be a programmer to be successful. I don't program as a business analyst. I don't do programming every day, but I'm more of a BSA, so business systems analyst. My programmers can work. I read codes because I know I have that knowledge. I can tell them they have an issue. I'm like, okay, pull up your codes. I need to take a look. And I look and I advise them. I'm like, okay, comment this out, add this. How about we look at this? But I'm not on my desk programming. But there is a lot of business analysts, even my mentor who mentored me, he doesn't do what I do. He's a business analyst, but he's never looked at codes ever in his life. He doesn't understand what it means. So just business analysis is such a big space. And that's why I say hang in there and keep an open mind with me. So here we have another slide here. What does a business analyst do? When I was looking at it, this image came to mind, and really this is what we do. And that's why you need to be honest, you need to be ready, you need to go through the step 1, and if it's not for you, it's not. And I'm going to show you step 3 is even what's going to make you really figure out whether or not you want to continue. So here, business analyst does a lot of things. So we look into understanding problems and what our stakeholders goals. What I mean by stakeholders is really there's someone at the top that you're doing something for. So it could be a company, it could be a project manager, it could be end users of a product. So you're looking in there. So ideally, and I'll put it in practical terms, what you do on a day-to-day, I'm taking myself as an example. I work for a company with service the ministry, we will service the government. So ideally what it would look like is the government comes to us, it could be like Ministry of water, Ministry of Lands or Resources, whatever it is. They come and like, oh, we're having these issues in our company, you know, we're not getting a return on our investments, our processes, the internal processes is just complicated. It's taking us 10 years. A client puts in a request and it's taking us about 1 year to give them a response back. We want to make our processes quicker. We want to have a faster turnaround time. And overall, we want to make our business interesting to more clients out there to deal with us. So they come into my company, they state what their problem is, and that's where I go out as a BA. So I'm going out to this BA, like, we need to understand for real, what is the problem here? So as a BA, I'm going into these clients' offices and talking to them, tell me about your problem, okay? They tell me, and sometimes, and that's why there are specific skills that a BA has to have. And one of them is you have to have a problem solving skills and you have to be comfortable asking questions. As a kid, I've always been that kid. I always ask a lot of questions. And I remember being a child, my mom sometimes would be like, Jesus, you don't go and sit there. Like, and I think I'm great at what I do because my natural God-given skills came with me on this job. So you need to be able to understand the problem. And that's where I'm like asking them questions. And based on the questions and conversations, I'm documenting all of these things. And I'm going to take it back and analyze and then figure out, okay, these are the needs. So they need to be able to improve their internal process. They need to do this and they need to do this. And based on this, I'm then looking at solutions. I'm not telling them what to do. You never, as a business analyst, you never tell them, I tell you to go do A and you'll be fine. You always recommend solutions based on what you've told me and based on the analysis of these needs. These are the solutions I think would be a good fit for your company. You need to improve your business process. I think you should automate some of these your manual tasks to be automated, maybe by introducing technology, and then you help them through those options of these are your options in terms of if you're looking to explore tech. And then you derive strategies to help them solve the problem. Again, you're still not telling them, go to Microsoft, buy Microsoft 360, put it in all the computers in the company and you'll be fine. That's not your job as a BA. Your job as a BA is to look at their problem, see their needs, recommend solutions, and help them derive strategies to make that change. It's up to, when you've given them all this recommendation, then that business will have to go back, take a decision on what they want to do. And then they come back and like, okay, hey, Judith, we've looked at your recommendations. Based on our finance and where we are, I think we want to go with option 2, but can we talk a little bit more? Can you tell us a little bit more? Can we set up a demo to see this solution? And then throughout that process, if they then decide to go through that path, you would then help them drive that change. So there is a lot of tasks and activities that you would do as a business analyst, but that would be something that is such an extensive conversation, but I'm not going to go into this presentation. So that's something that you can research or you can connect with me if you still, I do have other programs where I go really details in terms of the activities and responsibilities of a BA. But on an overview, if you're wondering what a business analyst does day to day, this is really what we do. So as you see in this image, there's a lot of thinking, there's a lot of writing, there's a lot of communication, there's a lot of asking questions. So if you're not comfortable with doing any of those things and you don't think you can build on those skills to grow a little bit more and be a little bit more comfortable and stronger, maybe BA might not be the job for you. So, and it's also possible sometimes when I go in as a BA and I talk to these businesses or stakeholders, sometimes they call me and say, we want a technology project. And then I go in there, their problem is not technology related, it's people. Their management might be on the left side and not doing the right thing. And that's where I pointed out, I'm like, okay, I can't really help you. My company can't help you. Based on my analysis, your problem, no technology can solve the problem you guys have in-house. This is an organizational problem. I need to get X, Y, Z people involved, and you guys need to start talking about it and talking about it quick. Because at that point, even if I go ahead and make them invest millions of dollars in doing a tech project, what's going to happen is you spend all that money, spend a year, deliver this product, and it still doesn't change what the problem is. So that's why as a BA is on you, that you're asking the right questions and you're analyzing and trying to figure out what the needs are and what the solutions are. So the easiest way to see a full detailed breakdown of a BA job is go online, pick up multiple BA job postings and just read through the job roles and responsibilities. You're going to be able to see, by the time you look at 3 job postings, you would be able to see the job responsibilities of a BA, and it would then begin to make a little bit of sense to you. Okay, so once you understand what business analysis is and what a BA does on a day-to-day, then the next step is then to start asking yourself, okay, what skills do I have that will be able to meet this job? And it's a little different when you're a fresh graduate or you're unemployed. Based on your degree, you can jump, if you did a related degree, maybe in computer engineering and business administration, you can start applying right away. Or it might also be challenging for you because there's a lot of people on the market who already has the BA degree. So in those, whether you're a tenured professional looking to transition your career or you're unemployed or a new graduate looking to go into the field, it's important that you inspect your transferable skills. So what are your transferable skills? So transferable skills, these are the skills that you can take with you from one job to the other. So sometimes in my mentoring scenarios, I've told you about people who came from the banking industry. They've always worked as customer service and teller front desk, and they just always get scared. Like, I really like the idea of this BA, but I don't know how to go from A to B because my 10 years experience has been in the bank as a teller, and then there's this BA job that is new to me and I'm interested in, but I don't know how I'm going to go from here to here. And this is what I'm talking about in this step. So these are the skills you take with you from one job to the other. And the way to do this exercise would be, you would have to write down all the jobs you've done so far, identify the skills that you have acquired on that each job. And I'll show you a little bit more about those skills. And then for new graduates or unemployed people who has no work experience, I think at this point you should consider some of your internships, your research task or group task that you've done. So for example, when I was a student, because I'm very, very organized and I keep to schedule, every group that I was always in, starting from my university or even secondary school days in physics lab and chemistry lab, they always wanted me to somehow lead the team because I'm very good at organizing. So you don't want to focus on, if you don't have an experience, don't worry. I need you to look back on internship, research, even your volunteer jobs that you've done in the church. What are some of the skills that people would always choose you, like, oh, Judith, we want you to do this because I think you can organize. Those are skills. Those are your transferable skills. So how do you assess your skill set? You need to understand the difference between soft and technical skills. So there are 2 different types of skills, or 3 actually. There are soft skills, and these are the ones that you can't be trained on. Is either you have it or you don't have it. You can try, but it doesn't come natural to you. So your soft skills would be if you're good at, asking questions or listening, or some people like to talk, they don't like to listen. That's a soft skill. If you can actively listen. If you're good at negotiating, some people are very good at, they have, like someone like my mom, she has the talent in negotiating. It doesn't come natural to me, but I've grown to become a good negotiator because I have trained myself and I went through a lot of training because I understand in my industry is a male-dominated industry. And if I do want to be paid more, or if I do want certain things to come to me as a woman, and especially even in a culture where I'm also a Black woman, I have to know how to negotiate and be very logical and confident in my negotiation. I developed that skill, but it doesn't come natural to me. But something like that is a soft skill. So you want to review the top skills required for a business analyst role, and then assess your own skills, your transferable skills, and see, let's say the BA role needs 3 types of skills, and then you need to look at those skills and see if you have them in your transferable skills. And I'll show you on the next slide how to do that exercise. But once you assess your skill set, what is going to help you see is you're then going to identify what the skills, so these are the BA skills that are required for me to transition. These are the skills that I already have. Because I have the skills, I don't have to relearn them. I already have the skills. Then it would allow you to focus on developing the skills that you lack. And all of this exercise is still what's going to help you. So the step 3 just kind of helps you confirm if you're still interested in pursuing the BA path. I've done this exercise with a couple of my mentees, and I'll tell you this, I think 40%, based on the number of people I've trained, 40% of them dropped out at this point. And they dropped out because some of them were honest and told me, Judith, this job requires a certain kind of skill that I don't have. I naturally, and these are not technical skills, they are soft skills. They're like, oh, I'm not good at actively listening. I can't multitask. Like, you need to give me something one at a time. So if you don't know how to multitask, you're going to find it challenging, because on our day-to-day job, we're talking to the clients, we're taking notes. Our brain is just like, boom, 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 around like pretty much around the clock. You're multitasking. It's something that can be developed. Don't be scared. You can develop that skill, but you need to be ready and willing to develop it. So I've had scenarios where people straight out of the gates just told me, I don't think this BA job is not for me, but thank you for your time. And I always tell, there's no right or wrong answer to this. It's better you walk away on time than you invest a lot of money, resources, and your time and figure out in the end that this job is not for you. Okay, so how do you do this mapping? So to my left-hand side here is your skills. These are your transferable skills. So if you go back to my previous slide, I said, and where I did this exercise, and I'll use myself as an example. I had a sales job that I did. So I went down and I wrote, okay, when I was at BlackBerry, I sold sales. My job was customer service and sales. These are the skills that I grew on that job. I learned how to communicate with people. I learned how to sell. I learned how to pitch a product. So I wrote down those skills. And then I went to my second job. My second job was when I was IT hardware support. These are the skills that I developed. I developed technical skills in maintaining servers. I developed presentation skills because I always have to do meetings and explain to my CEO and the team leads what we're doing in my department. So you write down those skills. And when you write down those skills, you take all those skills and you put all of them in the left-hand side. And then you would then start mapping them to the BA skills. And how do you get the list of BA skills? Again, go online, look at 3 to 4 job postings, and look into there's a section there where they would write required skills. These are the skills. So first of all, you see the job responsibilities. That's the job you'll be doing. And then you will then see the skills that they require. And some of those skills, they would say things like, must be good with critical thinking, must be good with multitasking, must have a certification, a CBAP certification. All of those things are the BA skills. So when you come under the BA skills, there are 3 sets of skills here. You're looking at your soft skills, as I mentioned earlier. These are mostly your natural skills. Can they be developed? Yes, they can be developed. But you will struggle. Most people that struggle in developing the skills are people who don't have that natural skills and they're unwilling to develop those skills. It doesn't come natural. Some people are not good with relationship building, even in their personal life. They can't check in with friends. When there is issues, they run away, disappear for 10 days. You put them in a room, they can't walk up to somebody and connect. They would rather sit in the background and hope that somebody will come up to them. So if you don't have those skills, you might struggle when it comes to relationship building, because what we do as VA is we build relationship every single day. We're going to talk to our stakeholders. Problem solving. This is a natural soft skills. Some people are not good with problem solving, and I'll take this as little, I'm just going to make it very real here. I'll take an example as relationship. Some people avoid, like they are complete avoiders. They will be malicious. They will sit in the back, don't say a word. They need someone to always tell them what to do or help them figure out their scenario, how to live life. In those scenarios, problem solving might be a little challenging because your stakeholders or clients are looking for you to provide answers. So you look at your soft skills. So this, how do you see this? You do your research, get all this, get this table in, put in all the soft skills that a BA job would require. Then look at the core skills of a BA. So the core skills of a BA, you have to have a decision-making strength. You have to have effective communication. You have to be very good with analytical reasoning because we are analyzing. We want to make sure we're saving our client money. You don't want to take your client from problem A to problem B, C, and D. So you're analyzing consistently, analyzing things, and these are the core skills that you would have on a BA job. And you can see all of this by doing your research and looking at resumes. And then we have the technical skills. So the technical skills are now really what you use to do a job. So it can be a technique, it can be a tool. So for example, one of the BA tools I use on my day-to-day, I do wireframes. So I create a mock-up with my clients. If I'm trying to build a software solution for my clients, I'd have to do a design that they can look at just to visualize the products. That would be a BA tool. That's a technical skill. That's something that I would learn. There's a cost for me to learn that. I'm going to go online, register, and learn how to use that tool. I don't need to have a natural strength to do that. All I need is the willingness to actually go and learn how to use the tool and practice. So some of the technical skills you'll see in BAs are, they could say, you have to know how to write a use case, user stories, wireframes, all of those things fall into technical skills. And this is the easy stuff. People always think this is the tough stuff, but I always say, this is the easy stuff because those tools are the same. If you learn how to create user stories in Jira, if you go to another company that uses Jira, the concept will be the same. But what's most challenging in skills is your soft skills. When you're meeting the clients, I'm not telling the clients, I'm good with Jira, I can draw wireframes, I use Confluence to document requirements. They don't care about that. What comes up in front of my clients is how empathetic I'm towards their problem. How do I help drive solution? How do I multitask? Like when they're talking to me, how do I capture all this information just flowing through one conversation? That's your soft skills. So when you write down all these BA skills, you can then start looking at your transferable skills and start looking at, okay, what skills do I have? And that's really what I did. When I was in sales, when I transitioned to BA, I then did this exercise. And by the time I looked at transferable skills, all the BA soft skills, I already had them. And that was the first time I ever got excited about being a BA. I'm like, oh my God, I think this job is for me because I'm good at relationship building. I can problem solve, I can multitask. I've always been a leader in all the groups that I found myself. So I think I have a point here. And then I continued my mapping. I went to the core skills. I was like, okay, I have effective communication, but I also know that I just moved from Nigeria and sometimes our communication posture is a little different. So I think I'm going to work on, because I'm in a different culture. The Canadian culture, they're not very upfront. A Canadian will tell you, you could tell them something and they tell you, yeah, right. Right means, it could mean like, okay, I get you, or it could mean like, okay, I'm lost, but I just want you to just say what you want to say and let me go. So it depends. So you need to learn. I had to learn like body posture, and I had to learn a little bit more about effective communication. In Canada, I learned that when you're talking to somebody, sometimes when you fold your arms, it kind of means like you're closed off. There are all these body postures. So for me, even though I can speak English, I put effective communication as still something I would work on because I was in a different culture and I did want to learn how to navigate that communication and perfect my active listening. And then technical skills, when I did my analysis, I didn't have any of the technical skills. It was zero. So that's when I knew if I commit to transitioning, I'm going to focus all my energy on my technical skills. And then here, based on what you've done here, you're then going to identify the skills that are lacking, and that's what you need to focus on. That's what's going to help you make a difference when you start getting those interviews. So you're going to write down the skills that you lack and then commit to then ask yourself the question, how do I develop the skills that I'm lacking? Because the whole idea is to prep yourself as a 360 ready to go BA analyst before you start applying for jobs. So once you finish that aspect, the next step would be to focus on strengthening your BA position. And how do you strengthen that? You strengthen your positions by identifying. So here I have at the top here, I said, if you are at this step, chances are you have decided to give business analysis a try, because most people that will quit in step 3. When they finish this skill exercise, they're like, okay, there's just too much that I need to learn and I'm not ready. I think I'll stay on my old job. But if you transfer to step 4, then I think to an extent, you've made the decision you want to continue with the BA path, and that's good for you. But to get here, there are a couple of things you would have to do. You need to then create a BA development plan. And what goes into your BA development plan is those skills you found that you lack here, you're going to put them into your development plan and you're going to give yourself timelines. So you tell yourself, okay, I lack effective communication. I'm going to start from today to now to look at materials on how to develop my communication skills. I have to start practicing it even in my relationship. I started practicing effective communication with my friends. I started practicing, I started rehearsing, I started learning how to actively listen. Like, if then I was in a relationship, I started learning how to keep quiet, shut my mouth and don't say everything and just listen and try to hear that person out, because that was a skill that I would have to take into my career world. You can write in technical skills there and then start looking at, okay, how do I develop the skills? But the first thing is for you to create your BA development plan. So right now, if you're currently trying to transition, if you don't have a BA development plan, I think you should create one. So that way it's very clear to you what are the things that you're trying to strengthen before you quit your job and start applying for another job. So you don't get the BA job and then realize that that job is not for you. The second step here is you need to then start expanding your learning. Now, how do you expand your learning? You could be free or paid. So with free resources, I did start first with free resources because after investing, I remember investing $2,000 on a certification that I went into the class 3 times and had no clue what they were talking about. And I just got disappointed. So the next time I did it all over again, I started with free resources. So I went online, I started with free resources, YouTube, went on Udemy, bought the $10 programs, the cheap programs, and then I started gaining. And the thing I like about these free resources, most free resources puts their content in layman's language. You don't have to be an expert to comprehend them. So once you get in there, expand a little bit of your learning, then you can then decide, okay, so let's say you're lacking some technical skills and then you want to get a certification. You're like, okay, I'm going to take it to the next level and then get a certification. At least by this step, you already understand what business analysis is. You're comfortable with some of the words that we use, like BA, stakeholder, elicitation, requirements. Those things make sense to you now, and then you can continue to go up that arch. Then the third one I have here is then to start exploring your hands-on BA exposure. So here, this is what changed the game for me. I started volunteering in positions. So I'm going on in LinkedIn and I'm reaching out to people that are in the field. I'm talking to them like, I'm looking for mentorship. Can you mentor me? I had a lot of people that over the years, they mentored me and they brought different kind of values to the table. But you also want to know this. Sorry, I live very close to the water. So these are like seaplanes flying if you hear some noise. Okay, so you also have to keep this in mind. Not every mentor you reach out to will take you as a mentee, and it's okay. You just have to keep trying. And the reason why I say this is when I started my journey, I remember reaching out to 15 people on LinkedIn and no one even replied me. It was only 2 people, and one of them, the man that replied me told me he had cancer and he's actually dying, so he can't do it. And then the second person told me they just had a baby. So you also have to understand that people are in different phases in their life. not every mentor would automatically take you, but you just need to keep trying because they're also human beings like you that have different responsibilities and they're at a different space in their life. And then part of the hands-on exposure as well is practice some of the techniques. So some of the techniques that we use in the BA world is like effective communication. We do process modeling. You can start thinking, give yourself assignments and try to model those processes or draw those processes. And the more you read, the focus of this program is not to teach you the techniques or how to execute a BA job. The focus of this training is to help you understand the concepts or the areas that you need to look at before you start transitioning so that when you eventually transition, you will be successful. So practice some of those techniques that you lack from step 3. Volunteer some positions. In my community, they had some volunteering positions here. I was able to go volunteer. So I would research BA associations in my city, BA associations in my state. I research all of those things, BA conferences. So some of them, even project management conferences, sometimes I would even research like tech conferences. I would dress up, randomly go there. And some of them I paid like few dollars to go in, but I went in there just because I wanted to see if I could get some volunteering positions and meet people that would help expose me. And eventually I found someone who was a consultant, and what he did for me was he allowed me to volunteer into his program. And I was just like, he paired me with some of his consultants and I just monitor and watch them and just ask questions. So I took control of my life. I wasn't waiting for the government to do that for me. I wasn't waiting for anyone. There are steps that I took to help change my narrative. And I also understand that the environment where you are sometimes can kick against you, but I do want you to try to push the boundary. Don't let the environment hold you back. Try to push the boundary. Try to do something that others are not used to doing. Maybe your story might come out differently than theirs. And the last step here is to start networking. So in networking, it takes me to the final step. This is where you have to leave your comfort zone. Now you know your skills. Now you're working on developing them. And there is no timeline to start networking. I think once you've decided to continue to move to a BA role, I think networking should just be the next thing for you. While you're doing all of these things, you're networking, you're talking to people, you're telling your friends, you're sharing, this is the next step, this is where I want to go. And the final step here is to engage with the BA world. So engaging with this BA world, again, is tips to help you engage with the BA world. I'm going to go here. Is if you already have a job in your current place of work, I think you should start asking them that question. Start checking in before you leave that company. Check internally first. And that's what I always tell my mentees. Check internally first. There might be a role within there for you to transition to a BA. You need to start talking to people internally. And then if it doesn't work, in my case, I started off with my company Bell and it wasn't for me. I wasn't able to transition inside. Then I started looking for a job outside of my current place of work. And that's how I got my first BA job. Number 3 here, apply for jobs, go for interviews and test the water. And maybe the first 10 interviews is not going to be a yes. And I'll give you my number. I did 17 interviews to get my yes. And when I started, people would tell me they're being racist to you because they're not Black, because you're Black. And one day I went into that interview and I had my phone in my handbag and I recorded my interview. I came home listening to my interview. I wouldn't hire myself. I wasn't confident. I wasn't answering the questions. There is no way I would hire myself even if I was the interviewer. And that allowed me to go back to my drawing board, looked at my skill set, and I started working aggressively to refine my skill set. Keep in mind that each person's transition is different, so don't put a lot of pressure on yourself. You could hear your friend who transitioned in 3 months. It may not be your story, but you want to make sure that you're doing the best that you can to put yourself in the right path. So eventually, when you transition, you're going to have more success. And I'll tell you this, I had friends that transitioned way before me. It took them 2 months to get a BA job. It took me 8 months to almost 1 year. But guess what? I got on my job. I got promoted in 3 years. I changed role 3 times. And today, the company I work for, I work as a director of IT operations, but I got into the workforce in less than 4 years. I went through like 4 different roles. There was a preparation that I had done that helps me to get to where I am today. And that's why I say there's nothing that you learn or you invest in to learn that will be a waste. Remember to check in with yourself to make sure your values and passions haven't changed, because it's possible that 2021, you started this journey. Maybe this year, life has changed. Things have changed. You have kids, you have, things have changed for you. So just remember to check in with yourself to make sure your values and passions haven't changed while you're on this journey. And also continue to learn and improve yourself while figuring out. But most importantly, I think my greatest takeaway from this final step is start engaging. Vocalize your interests, go out there, talk to people, apply for jobs. Hopefully like I applied for jobs, like I gave myself a target of 5 to 10 applications per week. And trust me, there is no one who comes out at a winning side without a lot of preparation and a lot of tenacity. And you can absolutely do this. So just to recap, I think we're a few minutes out here. But just to recap, the approach I've shared with you today is really a structured guideline that would help you figure out if this business analysis is a path that you want to take. And if it's truly a path you want to take, this would then allow you to go through the steps to make sure that you're looking at all the steps that you need before you then confirm and start engaging to transition your career. And to summarize, step 1, analyze why you want to change your career. Step 2, just get the basic concept about business analysis and what a business analyst does on a job. And maybe by the time you get there, you figure out that this is not a job for you. Step 3, inspect your transferable skills. Just because you're not working in tech doesn't mean that your skills cannot translate to a BA job. So you need to inspect your transferable skills by doing the exercise that I just showed you. And based on that, identify the skill sets that you need to improve on. And that's how you're going to strengthen your BA positioning. And once you start strengthening your BA positioning, start engaging with the BA world. Start going out there, talking to people, applying for jobs, start doing real stuff. Put yourself in communities that have the BA world. And there's so many social groups on Facebook, on LinkedIn. Start volunteering, start looking for mentors. And hopefully, as you continue through this path, one way or the other, your story is going to change for you. It's changed for me. I've done it for a lot of people, but I know that consistency is just really what's going to get you there. And this is just, again, another quote for Scott Peak, which says, the finance moments or when you're deeply feeling uncomfortable, unhappy, that's really when you're going to dig deep and do whatever it takes to change your story. I've been there. I made it happen for myself, and you can too. I know that we're all in different environments, but I just want you to be encouraged and know that you need to keep trying. And even now, people in Africa, there are lots of countries that are looking for remote job and they're hiring people remotely. So don't hesitate to put yourself out there and also look for, apply for remote jobs. Okay, I'm gonna take a pause here. This is my contact if you want my email, my LinkedIn account. This is it right here on the screen. And if there is anyone, I think I have a couple of minutes more here. I'm sorry, we didn't start on time because a lot of people didn't join on time. But if you do have questions, I'll take a couple of questions now.
All right, thank you so much, Judith. That was very detailed, I must say. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us and, providing us with various ways in which we can dive into a BA career. So if there's any question, please, you can unmute yourself. Everyone should be able to speak now. No restrictions, so you can just unmute. Or you can also type in the chat. Yeah. Okay, let me just put people on the spot. Kathy, Ellen, Juliet, Malcolm, Hikmat, Sophie, are you all okay?
And I have my contact on the screen. I know some people are not comfortable sharing in big gatherings, so feel free to send me an email.
That's okay.
Yeah, find me on LinkedIn as well if you do have questions. I may not, the time difference is huge where I live, because currently right now it's just 8 o'clock in the morning. But I will take time to look at my LinkedIn. You might not get my response right away, but I will reply as soon as I get a chance. So please feel free to reach out if you do have questions.
Hi, Linda.
Hello. Is it Malcolm?
Yeah, Malcolm here. Yeah.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I don't know whether Judith can go back to about 3 or 4 slides. I think it's, no.
Okay.
I think the one that spoke about how to train. I don't know. He spoke about the steps in becoming a BA. He spoke about
The BA.
the free resources.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I want that slide.
Okay. That's gonna be when you're strengthening your position here.
Okay, yeah, this one. Self-study, free resources certification. So I don't know whether you can answer this, but for you, how long did it take you for you to, which one was effective? Is it a self-study or is it a combination of all? Did you, okay, let me ask this question. Did you actually pay to go study it or you study it on your own?
I actually paid. So when I started first, I did my research, and when you go research on Google, there's all this certification and you see all these bodies that come up, they train you to write CBAD. That was the first thing I did. I registered, and then I had a couple of people and they recommended, they're like, you can self-study, but the book is so big and it's so vast that if you're not a BA, it's going to be hard for you to comprehend. So you need to register and, have like a class or something, right? So I registered and it still didn't make a difference for me. What I struggled with was every time in that class, I had asked for examples, the trainers would explain something and I'll ask them, tell me an example, explain this to me in a real life BA day-to-day. How do you do this? How is this applied? I couldn't get, it was hard for them to explain to me how it's applied. So it then started making me think, these people may not actually be BAs. They're actually just setting up the certification and just reading this thing and, going through the passages for you to write the exam, because I couldn't get that real life application. So I took 2 steps back. I went all the way back when I got somebody else mentoring me. So my mentor, now he does run a program to coach people, but he trained me and he was in church. And that's why it's good to talk and connect. I figured out in my community, there was this man who transitioned himself to become a BA, and he was giving back to the church. So what he does is in our church then, he will run programs for people that want to transition to a BA bi-weekly. And when you come in there, he's explaining to you what we do as a BA and the things that you need to do based on his experience. And he's relating that back to the certification. So for me, I went back and I started with free resources. I started downloading materials and trying to understand. I was reading different articles and different ways of writing. So I found some articles that are catered to people who have never been a BA that are using simple languages, and that made a difference. And then I started, and that's part of my self-study. And then I progressed to Udemy, where I would go to Udemy and just log on and buy free courses, watch videos, just to get a feel. And by the time I was done, at least I did this exercise for about a month. I became familiar with the concept of BA, stakeholders, all that jazz. It became a little more natural. And then okay, now I'm in a comfortable position. I understand. And I remember going back to my CBAP textbook, the Babok textbook, for the first time in my entire life, the chapter 1 made sense. The whole time I registered, I never understood what that book, like every time I read chapter 1, I never made it to chapter 2. It just didn't make sense. There was this big concept and I don't know what that means. But by the time I finished with free resources, self-study, went back, it kind of started making sense. But I'll tell you this, I got my first BA job with no BA certification. What I developed through my journey was I knew exactly what was on the resume. I knew what they wanted in their job posting. And going back to my step 3, where I talked about the transferable skills, I knew exactly the skills that they're looking for. And how did I know that? I pulled up like 3 different BA jobs. I picked one from Canada, one from the UK, and one from Africa, from Nigeria. And I looked at them. Something was consistent. There were about 6 to 7 skills that appeared on those job posts, and those were the big ones I wrote down. I'm like, I want to perfect the skills, because if I had the skills, I can pretty much get a job anywhere. And I focused on those skills. So my certification, I actually started, I got my first one when I was already 2 years into a BA job. So I locked in my first interview, like the first, I interviewed, I got like 15 no's. I'll tell you this because I was counting. But eventually, when I started getting yes, in the same week, I remember getting called from 3 different companies at the same time. They wanted to hire me. And there was something that changed. My confidence level in the interview, what I knew and how I could tie it back. I haven't even worked the job that long, but I had volunteered, I've mentored, I've practiced some of this technique. So when they ask me those questions in my interview, I can relate them to an example, because I was already living the life of a BA. And I had this big board in my sitting room that I just wrote there in big capital letter, I am a business analyst. I was walking the walk, I was talking the talk. So I didn't need a certification to get me my first job. All I wanted to do was just go in there and kill that interview, because I knew exactly what they were looking for in terms of skill sets. So for some people, they went straight with CBAT, but for those people, they get the job and they're still calling me from the washrooms, like, what do I do? And that's why nothing builds your confidence as well as like knowing what this business analysis job is, what you're expected to do, and having some type of knowledge on how to navigate the job, whether it's focusing on building your soft skills or exploring the technical skills and looking at 1 or 2 tools. So a common thing across the line for all BA jobs most times would be, you need to know, when you're talking about technical skills, you need to know how to write user stories, document requirements, and you can start researching those things without, CBAP doesn't teach you how to document requirements. It tells you requirement elicitation is part of your job, but teaching you how to write it in a Word document, that's not what's in the certification. And when you go into interview, what they're asking you is, tell me how you do your requirement elicitation. That's not something you can answer with CBAP certification. So you want to be able to visualize that question. And that's where you're saying, a good answer would be something like, how do you do your requirement elicitations? Like normally, I have a focus on what I want to talk about with the clients. I go in there, I'm driving the question. I always have sets of open-ended questions. And based on that, they talk to me, I'm writing down what I'm hearing. These are skills. And that's why you need to do this step 3 first, to understand, what do you need? What are the skill sets that a BA needs? Having a CBAP certification or IIBA, by no means, I am not saying that certification is bad, but you want to make sure I'm pro certification. If you go on my LinkedIn, I wrote quite a lot. In fact, I've taken down quite a bit. I stopped uploading a lot of them. I write certification at least one every year. I write about 1 or 2 just to keep improving myself. But I have hired people. I never hire people on my team that just speaks to certification. I need to know that you understand the concepts and you have some of the skills to meet exactly what I'm looking for, because just hiring someone for CBAP doesn't translate to doing the work or understanding the work, if that makes sense. Malcolm, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does, but I have about 3 more questions.
Okay, carry on.
Okay, yeah, first of all, I wanted to find out, in terms of BA, I realized that, so does it mean that you need to read the Babok book?
The Babok is if you're trying to get a CBAP certification. So if you're trying to get certified as a BA professional, yeah, that's a BABOK. But BABOK is also a very good book. That's the one book that has all the things that we do as BAs. But the problem with BABOK is if you've not been in the field, it's very difficult to comprehend.
Okay. Yes, I think it has the same problem with the PM book, the PEM book as well.
Yes.
Okay. So my next question will be, in terms of BA, does it have any impact on in terms of how does age of an individual who want to take part in a BA program or become a BA? How does it mean that if you're, I mean, does it have an age limit based on what you've gone through? Then second,
it's not. Yeah.
There's no age limit.
No, there's no age limits because first of all, the world is even transitioning, including Africa today. I remember 10 years ago in Nigeria, resumes, you have to put your age and people judge you by that age. But even now, recent tech companies setting up in Nigeria, I know I just did a program, a software development program with one of those recent HR companies coming up in Nigeria, and they're excluding age. But again, BA is something that my mentor transitioned his career at the age of 42. And that's like all these years, he's worked in a very different field. So it has no age limit. All you need is the willingness to acquire the skill if you're willing to develop those skills. But I find that the older people are, it's harder for them to forget everything they know and try to pick up on new skills. That's personal to that person. It's not about the job now. So there are no age limits to transitioning to being a BA.
Okay, the other question is, if a BA was, I think if it's a job that was in vogue or like it was the most sought after or one of the sought after jobs, why did you have to nail down 17 interviews before you got your role?
I had to go through that journey because I wasn't confident and no one is going to hire. Now I'm on a hiring panel and that's what I do on my day-to-day job for my company as well. Like for my team, to hire for my team, I hire for people, I hire the right people. So I lost out on those 15 interviews because I didn't have the correct skills. So I knew how to do definitions. When they asked me, what is the business analyst? I can explain. They asked me, name the responsibilities of a VA. I say it because I crammed it, I processed it, I read it. But I failed. Scenarios was where I failed. When they asked me things, tell me how you do your requirement elicitation. Tell me in a scenario where you have a difficult stakeholder, how do you manage this? Tell me an example where you had a conflict with a stakeholder. How did you resolve that? Those scenario based, you must have lived or taught the talk of a BA. I didn't cover those areas. I only focused on my book in CBAP, the BABOK and reading all these definitions. And I forgot that there is actually scenario based. And when someone is asking you scenario based questions and you can't answer those questions, and I was never a BA, but I trained myself to then get there. I trained myself through mentorship and when people are mentoring me and random things I'll look up online. How do you answer this question? And then I'll see the response and I'll ask myself, have you done a user story before? Okay, look up what the user story is. I go look up what the user story and I look at the concept. So by the time I trained myself, you would think I was, I'll tell you this, my first job as a BA wasn't a junior salary. I made my first job. I had convinced, I was so confident and I've practiced and I could do the work because I was practicing. That's my step 3, practice some of the techniques. I was able to speak like a BA that they offered me. I remember they gave me my first offer and I went back and emailed them like, no, I believe I could. This is a junior level offer. And I think based on my skill set, I'm qualified for intermediate. And I exactly got what I was looking for. But they told me, we're going to put you on this X amount of probation. And if you don't meet the requirements, we're going to pull. And I'm like, okay, yeah, because I was confident I've done the job and I'm going to use that job to still continue to perfect my skill. So it took quite a bit, but I didn't realize I wasn't coming off confidence in my scenario base until I analyzed why I was getting a lot of no, because people were already telling me, you're Black, it's racism. but I recorded myself. I think by the time I got to my 9th interview, I had my bag on my lap and I pressed my phone. I muted everything on my phone and pressed, and I recorded, went home, I heard myself, and I was so bad. I'm not even gonna lie. The lack of confidence, it was just, I wouldn't hire myself.
Okay.
So, yeah. So that's why it took me that amount of time. And that's why I'm sharing what I'm sharing, and I'm trying. No one did this for me. And based on my experience, I wholeheartedly share this with people so that you can understand that there are other steps to transitioning. The first step is not about the certification or getting a CBAP or PMP. It's not about that. There are so many things that you can do to get you there other than certification. And those things are more important because you need to sell yourself and you need to sell confidence while you're selling yourself.
Okay, so will you say the person that or the organization that hire you first before you get you got your certification, it was just luck that they were trying their luck?
But you're applying with everybody else on the pool. So I got selected based on what's on my resume and what I've explained. So you can beef up your resume, and the way it works here, you apply online, right? The system and the algorithm on the website already picks up your resume and pushes it to the people, the HR people that need to see it. So if your resume makes it, they select you, that means there is something on your resume that matches the skills that they're looking for. But the bigger piece of the interview is then to sell yourself. So it wasn't by luck, it's just that my resume met the requirements. I wrote in everything that is required as a BA and put it in, but I knew that the main work is not even about resume, because everybody can update their resume and add whatnot. But the main thing there is going in there physically in that interview and selling your skill sets to them and convincing them that your skill is exactly what they're looking for.
Okay, I know a lot of people maybe want to also ask, but my point is, the only thing that will show that you actually have the BA skills was to have certification, but this is where you didn't have certification.
The only thing that will show that you have a BA skill is not a certification. The things, looking at a resume, the things that will show that you have a BA skill is starting from the responsibilities and the roles that you've carried out based on what you have on your resume. And then certification is an add-on. And that's why certification, if you look at job posts, is at the bottom. It's never at the top. What shows that you have a skill set on a job is the responsibilities that you have held on that job. That's what they look at first. And I've been hiring, at least I've hired for 3 different countries with 3 different companies. We don't look at certification or degree first. The eyes goes to what's first on the resume. And what's first on the resume is your responsibilities and the roles that you've carried out. We look at that first. We're like, okay, this person has done this, they've done this, they've done this, that is okay, cool. Okay, additional, let's look at their certifications and degree. But the primary thing that sells anyone on the resume is your responsibilities and the roles that you've held. And that's why for most good hiring companies, if your responsibilities are there and you don't have a certification, they would invite you. They are giving you a chance to sell yourself, because every good HR hiring company, and I've also worked with a company that built a HR software, they always look for people that have done the job before or have this correct skill sets to do the job. And now most companies are transitioning from technical skill sets because that can be learned. But soft skills are the most important. And something like certification is a technical thing. You can, you write it and you get it. You can train and the company can pay for you. So like when I got my first IIBA certification, AAC, my company paid for it. They didn't hire, they're not hiring. Every good hiring company hires on your soft skill, the ability to work in their environment, the responsibilities that you've done, and then technical skills are things that they know. Giving the opportunity. If you're going as a junior to intermediate, they can train you. If you're going as a senior level, they expect you to have a specific type of technical skills, so you can't lie about that, right? Yep. So it's always first, responsibilities, what you've done, and then certifications and others are additional, and that's why they're at the bottom of your resume.
Good. Maybe I will allow other people to come in then, if there's...
Okay. You seem to have a lot of questions, so please feel free to email me and we can take it offline as well.
Yes, I will do that.
Awesome.
Thank you. Okay.
You're welcome. Thanks for asking.
Thanks.
Okay. Do we have one more questions before I close the session?
Hi, Judith.
Hi. Hello.
You want to end the session? Hi,
Linda, is that you or?
can you hear me?
Yeah, Linda, is that you? I'm getting a.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yes. Yes, it's me.
Okay, I'll just give it one more minute here. If there is no other question.
Okay. Okay, no problem. Okay, I see a question. I don't know if you addressed it already in the Q&A window. Please, what should be included in the business plan of a BA?
Okay,
I think we can take this as our last question.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think it's from
Did you get the
anonymous.
question?
Yes.
Should I read it again?
Yes, there are actually two. The first one, I'll start with the first one. The first one said, please, I'm aspiring to become a business development associate,
Okay.
and I want to find out if it's the same as a business analyst. No, in Canada, in North America, I would say those two are separate roles. Business development associates, really what they do is more of a BRD. They take initiative or strategic initiative to come up with projects or solutions that would help the company. It necessarily doesn't mean, so a business development associate, when they finally get a sign off on a project or whatever product they want to build, they oftentimes will need a business analyst to help them get the requirements. So it's a little different, but the best way to find the differences is just for you to research difference between business development associate and business analyst role. And you would see a lot of results will come up for you to analyze, so there are two different things. And also, just for the group here, there's business analysis and business analytics is also different, because sometimes I have people who wants to be a business analyst and they go register for certifications on training on how to use Tableau. Tableau is a business analytic tool. It's not really business analysis. So analytics is about mining data. So you're looking at data, you're researching data. Is heavily based on data mining and making informed decisions on data. But analysis is about looking at problems and looking at needs and figuring out solutions. So again, just putting this one out there, it would be beneficial for you to also research the difference between business analyst and business analytics. All right. The last question I have here is, please, what should be included in the business plan of a BA? So I wouldn't call it, so business plan is different from a business development plan. So a business plan is you're looking for a business, and most times it's something that you're looking for funding from a company. Maybe you have a product or so, and you're looking for someone to invest in you. You create a business plan, and business plan really shows the whole full cycle, how you're going to start, what's involved in your business, whether or not you've done your research on how valuable that business is. And it's more like a feasibility study of why you're doing your business. That's different. I think you're referring to business development plan, which is what I spoke about within the context of my training. A BA development plan is not a business plan. It's just a plan that you put in place to help you improve on the skills that you lack, so that you're able to go in, interview for those BA jobs and get yourself a good job or transition into a BA position. So a BA development plan, example, if you were on this session from my step 3, that's where you're going to see the skills that is required to be a BA, and you can figure out, okay, these are the skills I don't have right now. I have customer service skills, but I don't have maybe problem solving skills. or I have problem solving skills. I don't have critical thinking skills. How do I become a critical thinker? And then you can start researching that, or you can even have critical thinking ability. You have analytical reasoning, but you don't know how to interview people, because that's what we do on our job. We do a lot of interviewing, we facilitate meetings, we do a lot of presentations. Maybe you don't even know how to do presentation. You can give yourself in your development plan, you put in there, I need to learn how to build Microsoft PowerPoints, and I need to be able to build my PowerPoint and present it to somebody. And you can use your friends as, as an example. My friends and I, when we transitioned our career, we built a group. We actually had a bi-weekly meeting, and we put all ourselves in that group and scheduled a meeting, and we took turns because we all four of us wanted to be BAs. So we created this small group and we invested equally. So every time we came on that meeting, one person is sharing a topic or a new skill, and they are sharing what they learned, and we're all having an open conversation. So your development plan are all the things that you need to do to make yourself stronger as a BA, whether it's finding similar friends that have similar interests, setting up meetings with them for you guys to discuss the skills you lack, self-study, certification, training for a certification, looking for a mentor, all of those things are what goes into your BA development plan. I hope that answers your question. Okay. Yeah, if there's no more questions, I will be stopping here. It's been did someone say something? Okay. Thank you very much for coming in and hanging out here with me. I hope I've been able to encourage you in one way or the other, reassure you that you're moving in the right path, or even open your eyes that maybe this path is not where you really want to go in any ways, whether you're proceeding or you're going to retract, is all for the positive movement. I think that's what I really want this training to do for you. I want this training to open up your eyes, make you think a little bit better in terms of where you're going with transitioning to being a BA. And if you're able to take that away from this session, I think it's job well done, and I can pat myself in the back. So thank you for your time. It's been an amazing 2 hours spending that with you, and I wish you good luck. And don't forget to send an email or reach out if you have more questions.